This is the real inequality between men and women. Hello, welcome to Dangerous Policy, a channel aimed at intelligent people wanting to discuss important issues facing life and society. My name is Crispin, and today I'm going to talk about the demographic biological catastrophe that is facing educated women around the world. It is no secret that it is a difficult balancing act for educated, career-minded women to think about work, but also the social pressures and personal pressures of wanting to have children and raise a family. What isn't properly educated, imparted on young people today, is just how stark that trade-off is and the urgency with which that decision need be made. Unfortunately, our culture, and I mean Western culture overall, over the past X number of years, young girls have been taught to have it all. You know, have the career, the family, the perfect husband, the white picket fence, the global travel. All the dreams and wonders of the modern world are at your fingertips. You have the power within you to attain all of your goals and desires, particularly since you're, a special, intelligent person with much to give the whole world. That's the message that has been inculcated into, young girls, young women today. And to an extent, of course, some of that is healthy. You want women to feel like they can, self-actualize and realize their potential. You want that for all people, boys and girls. Unfortunately, there is a massive biological reality, and that is, of course, women's fertility. Now, women who are in their 20s, if you're in a relationship and you're trying to get pregnant and you're normal and healthy, you have over a 90% chance of falling pregnant within 1 year. So if you're planning to have a family and you're in your 20s and you're in a stable relationship and you have all those things in place, for most people, having a family is not a challenge. However, once you get to your 30s, that rapidly starts to drop. In fact, you go down to 60% within 1 year, I think, by your early 30s. And then by the age of 37, 38, the chance of falling pregnant within a year of fully trying is well below 50%. In fact, a full 25% of all women in that age bracket are totally infertile. And then after the age of 38, fertility falls off a cliff. There is not an endless biological clock waiting. And what you see is a lot of women in their 20s, they're learning about themselves, they know what they want, and then when they're ready, so-called, they'll find Mr. Right, settle down and have a child. But then when they hit sort of 31, they start freaking out that, oh my goodness, the time is running out. Once you hit 30, you go to the doctor. The doctor will say, oh, you're 30 now. Have you thought about having kids in the next year or so? Because, time's running out. And often women have not even contemplated it until that moment. But when they do, it's only in that point in which it's already basically too late that they look around and see there aren't many eligible men left. And why is that? Well, for women who are of a certain education level, so tertiary degree or above, in the West, so I'm talking about, Western Europe, the United States, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, and places like that, there are 50%, get your head around this, 50% more single women than men at age 30. Why is that? Well, number one, more women than men attend and graduate university. This is something that's been the case for the last 20, 25 years and has never happened before in all of human history before that. Secondly, men who are highly successful, who are driven, ambitious, educated, high status positions, well, they are either already married by age 30 or they're in their 30s dating women who are in their 20s. And then third, and this is potentially the most important, is that women through a combination of nature and nurture, are trained from birth to marry up, so-called. That is, to find a guy who's more educated, wealthy, experienced, has more income than themselves. Now, that's extremely difficult to do if you are a highly educated woman who's driven, career-minded, in a high-status position, because there just aren't that many men in that category, and those that are in that category, as I said, are dating younger women. So when you're in your 20s and you're a highly attractive, driven, intellectually minded woman, well, you're just surrounded by guys all of the time because you're in your 20s, you're attractive, and you're a high value dating partner. So women in that space don't think about it. They go, well, yeah, when I'm ready, when I've finished my university and I've got my career and I've put my deposit on the house, then I'll start to think about, who I want to marry and have kids with. They reach the age of 30, and when they are in that category, there aren't any men available. And then, so they're left with two different options. Number one is to so-called marry down, which is not a particularly egalitarian term. There are very intelligent tradies, highly skilled workers working in various primary industries around the world, very intelligent people, but they're not, it's a psychological adjustment that has never been made before. Women have not had to do this. So it's extremely painful for a lot of them and often somewhat desperate. There's also the other option, which is to find a guy with tons of baggage. So he's got the ex-wife, they've got kids from a previous relationship, all of that sort of stuff, which doesn't normally fit into the vision that the young woman has of herself. And so when I look around and I see women who are, well into their 30s, it's extremely painful to watch. When you're in a place that is highly dominated by women, I'm thinking about Australia's national capital of Canberra. Canberra is like an artificial city, a bit like Washington, D.C. It has a one business town, which is government. And if you've ever worked in the public service, you'll know that it's an extraordinarily female-dominated place. And being senior civil servants, they're all highly educated, very intelligent, policy-minded type of people, but far too many eligible bachelorettes in their 30s looking at their biological clocks with abject terror. And the strange thing is, it's not often you see women who have the same views on family in their 30s as they do in their 20s. So when I know so many women in their 20s who are just like, oh, I may never have kids. I'm not really interested. I'm not focused on that right now. If it doesn't happen, it won't bother me, right? I don't know many women in their 30s for whom having a child is not the most driving importance in their life today. In fact, I know one who is married and she elbowed her husband into getting some work done because she doesn't want kids, right? That's the one person I literally know, and that's the exception that proves the rule, because when I'm thinking it through, I can only think of one. I'm sure there are people in the audience who in their 30s, single female, totally happy with that, don't want kids, have no paternal instincts. That's perfectly fine. And this video is certainly not like a moral imperative to say, people should have kids or they should value this or they should value that. What I'm saying is, observing the world as it is, a large majority of women want to have children, a large majority of people have children, and women who are in their 30s, who are highly educated, who have been taught that they can have it all, that they can have the career and the family and all the wonders of life, well, they're finding out that that's not true. So if you are in your 20s and you are thinking that, oh yes, I'll wait for everything to line up perfectly and then I will be able to have a family, know that will not happen. Let me say that again. That will not happen. You need to start making decisions now about whether or not you're going to have a child and how you're going to go about fitting that into your life. If you are nearly 30 and you're not in a place where having children makes sense, like you don't have a stable relationship, etc., well, I recommend having your eggs frozen. This is something that should be much more part of the mainstream than it is today. We have the technology now where people can take hormones, they can have eggs extracted, they can have them deeply frozen, and those eggs that are frozen, using techniques that are much more reliable than they once were, those eggs are genuinely much healthier, much more reliable and fertile than women who are in their late 30s with the eggs that they're naturally producing. It's a extremely strange sort of phenomena that you can actually freeze an egg and it will be healthier than an egg that happens naturally later in life. But just the sheer quality of the eggs that are produced is that markedly different that holds true. So if you're in your 20s, late 20s, and you're not going to have a kid in the next year or so, do consider it. It does cost money. And then, after a year or so of keeping them on ice, you will be charged storage fees. So this is not a costless exercise. But if you have made the sacrifice for your education and your career, then that cost should not be prohibitive. If the reason why you're foregoing having a family at this stage is to have your career, well, that cost is definitely, much cheaper than childcare. Do that and you'll have that peace of mind. That will extend your fertility for many years. Now, I know it's a bit strange doing a video as this sort of random guy talking about women's fertility and so on, but I see this all over the place. And as a guy who's in his, let's say, approaching that sort of age, when I'm hanging out with women who are single, who historically have just been friends or people that are in that category, or even if you're dating, you go on a date with a girl who's in that age category, the pressure to talk about kids and things right off the bat is extremely strong. And I understand why. And this creates a power imbalance that I'm really uncomfortable with, right? Because guys do not have that same pressure. Guys do not have to worry about their fertility for many, many more years than do women. And guys tend to be attracted to women who are in fertile years. So one of the great things about human mate selection is that women will often be attracted to guys who are about 3 to sort of 8 years older than them throughout their lives. So if you are a 40-year-old woman, you'll be attracted to a 45-year-old. You'll be more attracted to a 45-year-old, generally speaking, than a 19-year-old, right? Whereas for men, well, because of just the sheer biological evolutionary processes, guys tend to be physically attracted to women in fertile years throughout their lives. All the guys that were really attracted to older women sort of died out over the ages because they didn't have children. It makes biological sense that that's the case. So guys just don't have that pressure. They don't have to think about it in the same way. And they don't have the same societal expectation placed upon them by, previous waves of feminism to say, look, you should have all these things and you shouldn't, compromise on any of them. Well, if that's the case, you need to plan out your fertility just as you would plan out, your house, plan out your career, plan out your education. It has to be something that you think about because it is time limited. And for that reason, do make that a priority, not just when you're in your 30s, but in your 20s. If you're in your early 30s and you're worrying about it right now, look up the fertility clinics. Make sure you do it before you're 38, 39, and, where things become really, really narrow in terms of options, go get your eggs frozen. That will help. That will take the burden off you to a significant degree and allow you to have more natural relationships. And you'll be able to find the guy who's right for you, not just the guy who's there. So hopefully that will be, kind of a useful sermon. Please leave your comments down below. It is an embarrassing topic to talk about. I'm not going to deny that. Certainly it is for me, but I see it every freaking day. And I think this is just something we need to discuss much more openly. It should not be a taboo subject, women's fertility. I think it has become highly politicized in a way that, people are accused of being like far-right maniacs or whatever if they're talking about it, because there is this sort of debate about motherhood and the value of motherhood in society and all of that sort of stuff. This isn't about that. We can have a conversation sort of sociologically about that in another space. This is about pragmatically thinking about, do you want to have a family? And if so, what's the best way to manage that in a way that will maintain the probability of you achieving that outcome, but also give you the necessary peace of mind? Leave your comments and experiences down below. No one will attack you. Just if you have going through this right now, I'd really like to hear about it. These kinds of challenges are very difficult. And otherwise, subscribe to this channel. Share this video if you think others would find it useful. And I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.